Well, thank you. I'm going to be talking about food and how our choices matter. So even while we're stuck at home, we still have to eat. And one of the things we can do at home is to work toward improving our food choices for the sake of the earth. For most of human existence, we've eaten what we could find. Food may have been abundant at some times, but in harsh winters or droughts, or more recently in poverty situations, man has sometimes struggled to find enough food to survive. But today, most of us have abundant food choices, and we have the luxury of being able to choose the food that fits our values. So one of the values that we care about is our impact on the earth. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about. If I can find the right place to chat. There we go. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is the three main ways that we can reduce our impact on the earth. I'm going to talk about the benefits of buying organic food, of reducing the amount you waste, and then also choosing plant-based foods instead of animal foods. So, organic foods are grown without artificial pesticides or fertilizers, and farmers must meet strict standards in order for their crops to be certified as organic. For processed foods, more than 95% of the ingredients have to actually be organic for the food to be classified as organic, and there can be no artificial ingredients. And for animal foods, the animal has to be fed exclusively on organic feed and not be given any antibiotics or growth hormones throughout its life. So the benefits of this is that it reduces levels of harmful chemicals in the environment. It regenerates the soil, which is needed to sustain life. And it helps us to maintain the diversity of plants and insects because we don't have so many of them killed off by pesticides. There's a benefit to you as well. It reduces the level of toxic pesticides and herbicides that you consume on your food. But what it doesn't do, although it's a very good thing to do to buy organic, it doesn't reduce the levels of industrial pollutants. That's things like PCBs and dioxins and mercury, because those things are out in the air and the water, and they get onto all food, whether it's organic or not. And one of the things you may not know is that animals accumulate those toxins through when they are eating and drinking, and they accumulate them through their lives. So when you eat animal products, you're consuming a lot more toxins, whether they're industrial toxins or pesticides and herbicides, than you would if you were eating plant foods. It's about 100 times difference. So if you are going to buy organic, make sure you buy organic animal. If you are going to buy organic, get this right. If you're going to buy animal products, make sure you buy organic animal products if you possibly can, because those are the ones that are going to make the most difference, both to the environment and also to your health. Talking about reducing food waste, we really want to make sure that we minimize the amount of food which goes into landfill in particular. Did you know that 31% of our food is wasted at the retail and consumer level? And some of that is wasted just because it's the wrong shape, the wrong size, or it goes off before it gets used. So when we buy foods, we can really think about buying foods that we need to eat in the short period of time before it's going to go off, and managing our refrigerator in particular, making sure that you keep an eye on what things are going to be going off when, and eating them up when you need to eat them up. So if you see something that's getting near to the end of its life in your refrigerator, that's what's going to be for dinner tonight. Wasted food is the single largest category of material placed in municipal landfills, and there's no need for, as Anne has already shown, you can compost what you do have to waste. So there's no need for food to end up in municipal landfills at all. But the biggest thing that you can do for the environment and for the sake of the earth is to cut down on eating animal foods. The United Nations produced a report called Livestock's Long Shadow, Environmental Issues and Options back in 2006. And they said livestock are one of the most significant contributors to today's most serious environmental problems. Urgent action is required to remedy this situation. So how could farm animals have such a big impact? Well, there are 60 billion farm animals currently being raised in the world today. If you think about the human population, I think it's about 7 billion people. So just looking at the ratio of people to animals, there are a huge number of animals being raised. And those animals all require food, they need water throughout their lives until such time as they're slaughtered. And directly or indirectly, they use 2/3 of all the arable land on the earth. So it's a huge impact on the earth. One of the things that those animals produce is methane from both ends of their digestive systems. Cows in particular are renowned for producing huge amounts of methane every day, but even chickens produce methane as well. So that's one way in which livestock agriculture produces more greenhouse gases than all the cars, trains, planes, and ships put together. Another way is because they are consuming feed which has been raised and grown and harvested and processed to get and delivered to the animals. And then there's all the refrigeration needed for the food products that are generated from animals. So once they've slaughtered the animal, then you have to refrigerate the meat, or when you milk a cow, you have to refrigerate it. And that takes fuel too. So there's a lot of sources of fuel, and the methane in particular, which is 21 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So that's one of the big reasons why it makes such a difference to change your diet to a plant-based diet. Another reason that a lot of people aren't aware of is soil erosion. Humanity depends upon soil for its food. Without soil, not only would our crops not grow, but other vegetation would die as well. And Franklin Roosevelt put it best when he said, "The nation that destroys its soil destroys itself." Raising cattle is the primary cause of soil erosion in the United States. When the plants are removed by the animals feeding on them, the soil is left exposed, and then it can become liable to erosion by the wind and the rain. In states like Iowa, which is a big agricultural state, soil is being eroded 30 times faster than it's being formed. And remember, a large proportion of the crops that we're growing are being fed to animals. Something like 70 to 80% of corn and soybeans are raised just to feed animals. Livestock grazing accounts for 85% of the topsoil loss in the United States. Deforestation is another big issue. We all read about the forest fires in the rainforests in Brazil. The number one cause of rainforest destruction is to grow crops for farm animals and for grazing. So they are deforesting the Amazon, and we're losing all of that biodiversity just so that we can provide more land to raise more animals. And water pollution is another huge issue. Those animals produce a lot of poop, I can tell you. And that poop ends up being washed into the streams and out into the rivers and down to the oceans. In addition, there's all the pesticides and herbicides that are applied to the crops that are grown for their food, and those get washed into the oceans too. And we end up with huge dead zones, killing off all the fish in the ocean, in areas of the ocean. But it also accumulates in the fish in the streams and the rivers, and those pollutants get into our crops. You've probably all heard about lettuce getting E. coli on it. Well, E. coli comes from the colons of the cows, and it's getting spread onto the lettuce, and then we get diseases ourselves from that. If it wasn't for those cattle, it wouldn't be a problem. So you might be thinking that fish is much better because it's not causing all these problems. But fishing is really wasteful too. When they go commercial fishing, they have these huge nets that scrape across the ocean floor, ruining the ocean floor itself and capturing huge amounts of fish. And then they go through those fish and they sort them out, and 1 in 3 are just thrown straight back into the sea. But usually by that time they've been killed. Discarded fishing equipment is another huge source of plastic waste in our oceans. And we've all seen pictures of whales and dolphins tangled up in these fishing lines. So that's another good reason to cut back on the fish in your diet, is to try to limit the damage that's happening in the ocean. So by following a plant-based diet, you can walk a lot more softly on the earth and make a lot smaller footprint. So what do I eat, you might say? Well, what we want to encourage is a diet based on plants, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes. Legumes means beans, and those are your best source of protein in a plant-based diet. Although there's actually quite a lot of protein in vegetables and whole grains as well, especially when you keep them whole, like brown rice and quinoa and oats. They all have some protein in too. So there's no need to worry so much about protein. You also should include nuts and seeds. Those are really healthy for you. Herbs and spices have a lot of antioxidants and health benefits, and add a lot of flavors that will make your food really tasty. You want to minimize your use of oils, but you know, a little bit of chocolate here and there is allowed in a plant-based diet. The only vitamins you need to worry about are vitamin B12, and because we live in the Pacific Northwest, we recommend you take vitamin D as well. That applies to everybody, whether you're eating animal products or plant products, because we just don't get enough sunshine. But it's sunny right now, which is nice. So just to remind you about the protein issue, most large animals, such as gorillas, elephants, are herbivores themselves. You might think that you need a lot of protein from meat, but they don't need protein from meat, and nor do we. We are herbivores by design. And just in case you're worried about where you're going to get your protein from, here's just a sample of different foods and the percentage of calories that comes from protein. So even broccoli has 45% of its calories from protein. If you look at this and you think that the National Institute of Health says that we only need 10 to 12% of our calories from protein, you can see it's pretty hard if you're eating a nice wide range of whole plant-based foods. It's pretty hard to get less than 10 to 12% of your calories from protein. So it's also a very healthy way to go. There's all kinds of diseases that are improved or prevented by eating a plant-based diet. I have a whole website called Plant-Based Diets in Medicine, which can tell you all about the different diseases, and it's all fully referenced. So don't worry about your health from this point of view at all. It will only do you good. And I could even add the coronavirus on here, because what we're finding is that most people who are most severely affected by the coronavirus have one of these diseases as an underlying cause. So if you remove the risk of these underlying diseases, then you've got a lot less risk of dying from the coronavirus too. So here's just a few tasty ideas. You could have what happened there? Bean burrito. You could have a chili with lots of different types of beans in it. An Indian chickpea curry or a dal is another Indian dish that's very popular. I'm going to be cooking a lentil loaf at my next cooking class. I'm offering cooking classes at 5 p.m. every Friday. So if you would like classes and learn how to cook more tasty meal ideas, please do join me. Just send me an email to let me know, and I'll send you the Zoom link. You can have a pesto pasta, you can have tofu stir fry, a veggie burger, a veggie pizza. The list is endless. Believe me, you will not starve on a plant-based diet. So I'm happy to take any questions that anybody might have on how to go plant-based. You know, you don't need to do it all at once. Meatless Mondays is a great way to start any day of the week. It doesn't have to be Mondays. So I'm just going to throw this open for people to ask any questions you'd like.
There was one comment
Mm-hmm.
that many non-vegans also need to supplement their vitamin B12, especially folks that take metformin.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Gwen. I know that Gwen is a doctor, so I respect that.